Hello everyone, in this video we will set up a collectible item that you can place in your level so that when the player collects it, score goes up. We'll also add a heads up display widget which will display the score somewhere on the screen for the player to see. I'm going to use some assets that I downloaded from the internet for this. I'm going to use some sprites. For the time being, you can use something similar. If you want to get something from the internet, that's fine. Or you can just use like a sphere or a cube or just anything to represent your collectible item. I'll show you how to do both. So let's set up our item to start with. In fact, I'm going to bring in the art first, then we'll set up the item. So I'm just going to go into the art folder, animations, let's make a new folder for items, and then in there I'll make another folder for collectibles. So random spelling, collectibles, and a new folder. Mine's going to be a coin, so I'll make a coin folder. Let's go in there. I'm just going to import my sprite sheet, which looks a bit like this. It's just a simple rotating coin that I downloaded from itch. Like I say, not necessary. You will be making your own eventually. Just going to drag that in. I could set up some more folders in here for like sprite sheets and then sprites and flipbooks, but let's just save some time and not bother. So I'm going to right click, go sprite actions and apply paper 2D texture settings, then right click again, sprite actions, and extract the sprites. They look absolutely fine as they are, so I'll just extract those, and then I'm going to shift select all of these sprites, right click, create a flipbook, and I'm just going to name this flipbook FB underscore coin. Okay, that's my flipbook set up. Let's go back to content, blueprints, and we'll make our coin blueprint now. So let's right click and a bit of empty space. We'll go blueprint class. We're going to make an actor. We'll call this BP underscore coin. And we'll double click to open that up. So like I said, you can just add a sphere or a cube or whatever you want to be the physical or visual representation of your collectible item. Just add a cube in and then scale it down to something that's appropriate. For me, I'm going to add in a flipbook component. So paper flipbook, and I'm going to change the source flipbook to be my FB coin, and obviously I need to scale this up. Everything else was scaled up to a value of 3, so I'm going to do the same here. I'm just going to compile and save that, and I'm going to go back to the test level. I'm going to drag 1 into the level, set the Y location to 0 so that it's level with the floor, and I'll just pop that there for now. Press play and have a look. That looks absolutely perfect. Wonderful. Let's just delete that. In fact, no, we'll just leave it there. We shall leave it in our level. That's absolutely fine. Right, back to BP coin. I'm going to add another component. Do make sure that you have got no components selected over here. So just click in a bit of empty space on the components list before you do this. So I'm going to add a sphere collision, not a actual mesh, but a sphere collision. And this component is going to register when our player character jumps into or runs into our coin. It's a little bit big, so I'm going to guess 22. Look at that, perfect. That fits perfectly. So I'm just going to make the sphere round about the right size for the sprite. I'll press compile and save. I'm just going to go down and check its collision. It's set to overlap all dynamic, which is fine. We don't want it to be set to block, otherwise the player will be able to stand on them, bounce off them, things like that. We want the player to collide with them, but go through it. So we want it to detect the collision with an overlap. So let's get some functionality. So we'll go to the event graph. Let's get rid of these events here. Let's add our event. So we'll right click on our sphere because that's what the collision is based on, and we'll go add event, on component, begin overlap. From here we want to take the execution pin and cast to our BP player character. Casting's probably not the best way to do this, but for now it's fine. We're just going to use this to check to see if the thing that has overlapped with our coin is the player character, just in case we have any other moving components or enemies or something like that later on down the line. We don't want them to be able to collect the coin, so this just checks to see if it was the player character. Maybe in a later video we can have a look at collision channels and things like that, but for the time being this will do. We can quickly check to see if everything's working by just taking the execution pin from the cast, and we'll add in a destroy actor. So as soon as the player character overlaps with the sphere, it'll destroy the coin. So we'll quickly check that. We'll just compile and save, press play, run it the coin, and it's destroyed. Now obviously we want the destroy to be the last thing that happens, so I'm just going to hold Alt and left click on that link and just break it and just move the destroy over there, because there are some other things that we want to happen in the meantime. So we need to set up our score variable somewhere. I'm going to set up score on the game mode. So I'm going to go into the blueprints folder and open up my BP underscore game mode blueprint. And in here, we need to create a variable which will count our score. So let's add a new variable. We'll call it score, and we'll change it from a Boolean to an integer, which is a whole number, which is perfect for score counting. So we have a score variable, which is an integer, and it's sat on our game mode. Let's go back to the coin. So just after the cast, we are now going to cast to BP underscore game mode. Make sure you are casting to your BP underscore game mode, because that's where we made the variable. In the object reference, let's get game mode. Now there's different ways that you can do this, right? Let's just compile that. We can just take as BP game mode and search for score. Let's get score. What we can do here is just take the pin out of score and search for increment. And if you hover over increment, you'll see that it says add 1 to the specified value, then set it. So that's a nice, easy way of doing it. But that's only really useful if you want score to go up by 1 every time you collect an item. Maybe you want to go up by 5 or 10. Perhaps you've got items that are worth more than others. This is where we'll have to change it, but we'll check this for now. We can check this really quickly by just adding in a print string, and then we'll take the result and plug that into the print, and then plug the destroy in. So what happens is an overlap occurs. We check to see if it was the player character. We cast to the game mode and we increment score by 1. We print that value out onto the screen, and then we destroy the coin. The print string is really just there for us to check, so we are going to get rid of that. So let's just add in like a couple of these coins. I'll put one over the spikes, and then I'll put one on the other side as well. These items are really handy for telegraphing to the player. You know, if you put a coin up there, the player automatically knows that they've got to jump over, just in case they don't somehow realize that they're not supposed to jump over these spikes. The coin up there will indicate, right, I've got to jump to get that. So there we get 1 when we collect the first, if you look in the top left hand corner, and then 2, and then 3. So our score is going up by 1. Now if you wanted to increase your score by more than 1, we'll have to get rid of this increment. From our execution, let's search for score again, and then we'll set score. And we're going to do a little bit of maths. So we're going to take our score here, search for the plus button, and we're looking for an add, and then we can put in whatever we want in here. Let's say we get 5 for every coin, and then we'll put that into the set score, plug that into the print string, plug the value in there. Let's make a bit of space so you can see that. So what that's doing is it gets whatever score is currently, adds 5 to it, and then that becomes the new score, prints it out onto the screen, destroy the actor. Let's compile and save. Oh, we've got an error here. We must make sure to plug in our game mode as the target, compile and save that. Let's press play. So now we should get 5. So we've got 5, 10, and I died. I suppose this is a good time to indicate, to point out the fact that your coins won't be there if you die and respawn. Maybe in another video I can show you how to set that up, so that when the player dies the coins come back, but we'll do things like this for now. And then the last one we should get 15. Alright, so that's how we can do it in different ways. You can either increment or you can add whatever value you like. I'm going to leave it like this for now. I'm going to get rid of the print string, don't need that anymore. I know it works, and I'll just replace that connection to destroy actor, so it just doesn't print out onto the screen anymore. Right, let's compile and save. Now we know we've got a variable on our game mode called score, and the coins will add 5 to that variable every single time they are collected. not bad. So let's go back to our level here and let's create our heads up display. So we'll go into the UI folder for this because it is UI. Let's right click, go into user interface, and we'll create another widget blueprint. We're going to make a user widget. Press select. Let's call this W_HUD for heads up display. Double click to open it up. First thing we're going to need is a canvas panel. So inside of panel, just drag that in and drop it on top of HUD. And then we just need 2 text boxes. So let's grab one text box and another one for the time being. In the first one, let's just type in the word score where it says content and text, and then we'll put a semicolon on the end. And we'll change the font to the font that I've been using throughout the game, and I'm going to make it bigger, let's say 50. And I'm just going to set the Y position to 100, and then I'm going to come over to this text block, and for now I'm going to change the text to 0. I'm going to get that text to match, so I'll just change the font to my font and the size to 50, and then the position on the Y to 100 so that it's even. And then I'm just going to nudge it over. One thing I might want to do is, now we should be alright, just make sure your justification is set to align text to left, and it'll just grow from left to right as the score goes up. I'm just going to line it up a bit with score. That looks okay. Let's add an outline actually, just so it stands out. So I'm just going to select my score and change the outline size to 2. It's already set to black, so that's fine. Same for the number. Outline size set to 2, and that'll just help it stand out. I'm going to use the player character to create this widget. So let's go back into the blueprints folder, open up the player character. We want the player character to create the HUD as soon as play begins. So let's right click and search for event begin play. Don't forget we're in the player character here. So from event begin play, let's create widget. The widget we want to create is WHUD, and just like we did before, the return value let's add to viewport, and we'll compile and save that. We can test this quickly. We should just see score 0 on the top left, so it's drawing our HUD, but our points don't go up just yet. One thing I'll point out, that when you die we do get a camera fade, but the HUD does not fade. We would have to add in a fade animation, so maybe I'll do that in another video shortly after this one. We shall see. It's not super important for now. Alright, so we've got score on the screen, but it doesn't change. So let's go back to our W_HUD, and what we're going to do is we're going to take our text 0, and where it says content and text, we're going to make a binding. So let's click on bind and create a binding. That's going to add us a function, and the function is basically going to get the score value from the game mode and update it into our text box. So let's spread these two nodes apart. This is the start of your function and this is the end of the function. So from the start, take the execution pin and we're going to cast to BP game mode. Object reference obviously needs to be get game mode, and then as BP game mode, let's search for score and get score, and then we'll simply plug score into the return value, compile and save. So this function basically is checking our game mode to see what score is. It turns that integer into a text value and it will update it here on the screen. So let's check that. We should get 5 points per coin. 15 points. Wonderful. And then we'll complete our level. We could add on the end, might want to move that a little bit. Let's just, might as well do that now. Just move these two text boxes so that they're not colliding. But like I was about to say, what we could do with the end game widget that pops up is we could maybe get rid of score from there and display like a final score in the middle of the screen perhaps, but we'll not do that now. We'll maybe have a look at that next time or in a later video. Alright, that'll do it for this one, guys. Thank you. I shall see you in the next one.